Commander Lysa Renk stopped calling it a siege on the 9th day. A siege implied patience, strategy, the slow grind of hunger and compromise. This was something else. Holdfast K7 trembled through its spine as another impact rolled across the hull. The vibration was low and ugly, metal complaining under stress, like the station wanted to curl in on itself and hide. Above the tactical pit, a ring of projectors painted the battle in hard light. Dozens of hostile contacts drifting like black splinters around the station. Not ships, exactly. Not the way civilized minds built ships. The Varkoon swarm didn't craft vessels. They grew them. Shield Node 3 is bleeding, Tactical Officer Jiren said, voice thin. It's not collapsing yet, but the harmonics. Lysa watched the blue arc of the defense grid flicker. One node dimmed, brightened, then dimmed again like a sick heartbeat. Time, she asked. Jiren hesitated. 20 minutes. Maybe less. Maybe, Lysa repeated softly, because maybe was how people died. A sound crawled through the command deck speakers. Wet clicks, a slow mechanical chew. Then a translator layered over it, pleasant and wrong, like an automated concierge offering a spa appointment. Compliance reduces processing time. Please remain calm. Lysa's blood went cold. She didn't need to ask where the audio came from. The swarm didn't waste opportunities. Every broadcast was a blade pushed between ribs. Mute it, she snapped. Communications Officer Halen hammered keys. It's not coming through comms, Commander. They've injected it into the emergency intercom loop. He swallowed, eyes glassy, it's station-wide. Lysa stared at the sealed doorways on the deck below, their crew working under that sound, breathing under it, trying to sleep under it. The swarm wasn't just attacking the station. It was training it to break. Route a counter-signal. White noise. Anything. Halen's hands shook. They're riding the frequency on a carrier we can't isolate. It's inside our infrastructure. Of course it was. The swarm had been chewing on Holdfast K7 long enough to understand it. Not the hardware, the habits. The assumptions. The kindness built into the systems. Lysa flexed her fingers over the console. She could still feel the ghost of a child's grip from an hour ago, when she'd passed through the civilian shelters. A small, warm hand clutching her sleeve like she was something solid in a world turning liquid. How many remain in the shelters? She asked. 38,000, give or take, Jiren said. Many are rotated from the agricultural decks. Some are from the last freighters that made it in before the lane shut. 38,000 lives under failing shields. Lysa inhaled once, slow, and tasted recycled air, sharp with ozone. Priority channel, Halen said suddenly. High command. The command seal flashed on her primary screen. CGS gold, ceremonial as a necklace placed on a corpse. She accepted. A face appeared, Admiral Sorin, crisp uniform, calm eyes, as if he were calling from a conference hall instead of a civilization's frontier. Commander Renk, he said. Your report was received. Then you know we can't hold, she replied. We've lost 2 grid relays and our munitions are down to 17%. We need reinforcements within the hour or K7 falls. A pause. The Admiral's gaze shifted briefly, like he was reading from a slate. The Senate is concerned about escalation, he said, voice measured. There are diplomatic constraints. Lysa felt something in her chest tighten until it hurt. Diplomatic constraints, she echoed. We must avoid actions that provoke retaliation against the civilian populations in neighboring systems. They're already retaliating, Lysa said, and her voice came out too sharp. They're broadcasting. We are aware of their psychological operations, Admiral Sorin cut in. We advise you to maintain composure. Hold fast K7 is to endure. Endure how? The Admiral's expression remained polished. 30 hours. That is the projected window until the 3rd Relief Flotilla can reach your position. Lysa stared at him, hearing the station groan again beneath another impact. 30 hours, she repeated. Yes. No one gets here in 30 hours, she said. Not through the corridor. Not with the swarm's interdiction fields. Our analysts. Your analysts aren't listening to the sound they've pumped into my children's beds, she said, and for the first time, the Admiral's composure wavered. Just a flicker. Commander, he warned. Lysa forced her voice back into alignment. She owed her people that much. Admiral, surrender is not an option, she said. The swarm doesn't take prisoners. They take materials. Silence on the line. Then the Admiral's voice returned, softer, weighed down by protocol. Maintain station integrity. Minimize civilian exposure. Do not, under any circumstances, authorize non-compliant auxiliary intervention. Her hands went still. Non-compliant. But the channel had already cut. Lysa sat with the abrupt emptiness, staring at her own reflection in the dark of the screen. Her eyes looked older than they should have. Commander, Halen said quietly, there's another incoming transmission. She didn't look away. From the swarm. No, he hesitated, then added, it's not CGS. Jiren turned, frowning. Unknown signature. Halen's throat bobbed. Old contact code. Like a treaty reference. Something from the archives. Lysa finally lifted her gaze. On the comms board, a single line of text blinked in stark white. Earth Auxiliary Response. Received. Eta, 3 hours. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Earth. The Death World. The species the CGS had called excessive, back when they were still new to the stars and too honest in their assessments. Humans had offered military cooperation once, years ago, and the Senate had thanked them politely and quietly filed the offer where no one had to look at it again. Lysa swallowed. Patch it through, she said. Commander, Jiren warned, High Command explicitly said. I heard them, Lysa replied. I also heard our shields dying. The channel opened. Static, then a calm voice, low, female, carrying a flat steadiness like a rifle held level. Hold fast K7. This is United Nations vessel Hecate. We read your request for reinforcements. Confirm, you have civilians aboard. Lysa blinked. The voice didn't sound eager. It didn't sound righteous. It sounded tired. Focused. Yes, Lysa managed. 38,000. A pause, and behind the human voice there was a faint background hum, engines, distance chatter, the rhythm of a ship that worked for a living. Copy, the human said. How many medical bays remain functional? 4, Lysa answered, confused by the question. And your water recycler? Damaged. Operating at 60%. Another brief silence. Understood. We're coming in hot. ETA now 2 hours. 51 minutes. Don't waste power trying to welcome us. Lysa leaned forward. Captain, what are you bringing? A soft exhale came through the line, not quite a laugh. Commander, we're not a fleet, the human said. We're a problem. The transmission cut. 2 hours later, the stars outside Holdfast K7 warped, not from the swarm's fields, but from something punching through reality with stubborn intent. A narrow streak of light bloomed into a ship that looked like it had been built by people who didn't trust the universe to behave. UNV Hecate was compact and ugly. Armor plates layered like scar tissue. Engines pitted and scorched. No elegant fins, no ceremonial paint, only a faint emblem near the bow, partially burned away, as if even symbols had to earn their place. Docking request, Halen said, voice shaky. They're not asking for clearance. They're already aligning. Lysa watched the human ship drift closer with frightening precision. It didn't glide. It moved with purpose, each micro-adjustment exact and impatient. Then a new alert snapped across the tactical display. Hostile contacts. Hull attachments detected. Not missiles. Pods. Dozens of them, small and fast, slamming into the station's outer plating and unfolding like insects. Breaching cutters. Jiren shouted. The intercom, still hijacked, whispered its nightmare again. Please remain calm. Lysa's jaw clenched until it ached. The human ship's comm channel opened without ceremony. Hold fast K7, the same voice said, sharper now. This is Captain Mara Valles. We're boarding you first. Lysa frowned. Boarding, why? Because your enemy already did, Valles answered. And I'm not letting them be the first ones to meet your civilians. On Lysa's screen, the human ship latched onto K7 like a hand gripping a drowning person. Then the station shuddered again, this time not from impact, but from something inside waking up. Human boarding teams. Coming through the walls. Coming fast. And for the first time in 9 days, Lysa felt a sensation she hadn't allowed herself to touch. Not relief. Not hope. Something sharper. A readiness that tasted like survival. The first human to step onto Holdfast K7 didn't salute. He checked the ceiling. Not in awe, like a mechanic studying rot. His helmet lamp swept across the corridor's seam lines, vents, and access plates. Then he lifted 2 fingers to his throat. "MIC. Air's breathable. Smells like burned wiring and fear," he said, completely calm. "We're home." Behind him, more humans poured through the docking collar in compact armor the color of old graphite. Their gear looked lived in, scuffed plates, taped edges, patches stitched over tears. Nothing ornamental. Everything practical. Commander Lysa Renk watched from the corridor threshold with a security detail and 3 exhausted officers who had forgotten what a fresh uniform felt like. Captain Mara Valles arrived last. She was shorter than Lysa expected, shoulders squared, hair cut close to her head. Her eyes were dark and unshowy. She carried no visible weapon, but everyone around her moved like she was the weapon. "Commander Renk," Valles said, and this time she did dip her head, an acknowledgement, not submission. "Show me your breach points." Lysa didn't move. "Your teams are already inside my station." "They're inside your station because the swarm is inside your station," Valles replied. "I'm not here to be polite. I'm here to keep your people alive." One of Lysa's lieutenants bristled. "We have protocols." Valles looked at him, then at the far wall where the station intercom continued its low, predatory loop. "Compliance reduces processing time." The captain's gaze hardened. "Your protocols are getting you eaten." Lysa forced herself to unclench her jaw. "Follow me." They moved at a run, because there was no other speed left in the universe. Down the corridor, the air carried a metallic tang and faint vibrations that made teeth feel too large in the mouth. Every few seconds, a distant thump rolled through the bulkheads. The swarm pods were working, cutting, chewing, finding access. At junction C14, Lysa's security team stopped dead. The wall had been opened like a wound. Not blasted. Peeled. A seam had been pried apart with surgical cruelty, the metal bent outward in smooth, curving petals. Beyond it, a narrow tunnel of black organic material pulsed faintly, as if alive and satisfied with itself. 2 of Lysa's soldiers raised rifles with shaking hands. The humans didn't flinch. One of them, broad, heavyset, visor scratched to near opacity, crouched and pressed a sensor wand against the growth. "Biometal composite," he muttered. "Still warm. That means it's connected. They're feeding it energy and information." "Can you remove it?" Lysa asked. He looked up at her. If I remove this the wrong way, it'll scream into their network and we'll get 100 more." Captain Valles stepped beside him. "Then don't remove it the wrong way." The human exhaled once, as if settling into an old habit. "Copy." He nodded to 2 teammates. They produced canisters and sprayed a foaming sealant that expanded instantly, filling cracks and choking the tunnel with white pressure. Another human slid a thin blade into the edge, then tapped a small charge into place with the gentleness of planting a flower. Valles watched his hands. "On my count." 1, she said. 2. On 3, the charge popped with a soft, contained thud, and the entire organic tunnel went rigid, frozen in a sudden crystallized spasm. A second later, the human team severed it cleanly and hauled the twitching piece away like a dead serpent. Lysa stared. No screaming. No alarms. No catastrophic retaliation. Just removal. "You've done this before," she said. Valles didn't smile. "Enough." A warning tone blared from Lysa's wrist slate. Shield Node 3, failure imminent. Her stomach tightened. We don't have time for corridor surgery. The shield grid is breaking. Valesse already had her pad out, scanning the station schematic with fast precision. Take me to the defense core. Lysa hesitated. The defense core was the heart of Holdfast K7. No outsiders. No exceptions. Then the station shuddered again, harder. A distant scream echoed through the metal, muffled and brief. There was no clean choice anymore. Fine, Lysa said. But my chief engineer stays with you. Good, Valesse replied. I like witnesses. They reached the tactical pit to find it half-manned, half-haunted. Officers worked in silence, faces hollow from too many days of listening to the swarm's broadcasts. The lights were dim to conserve power. The air felt stale, like breath held too long. Valesse stepped onto the raised platform and took in the projections in one sweep. Then she spoke like a surgeon announcing a diagnosis. Your station is built to repel ships, she said. Not parasites. Jiren, still at the board, snapped, we were designed for civilized warfare. Valesse's gaze slid to him. Your enemy is not civilized. Lysa crossed her arms. You want control. I want authority, Valesse corrected. Temporary operational command over 3 sectors of your defense grid. I also want permission to deploy boarding measures. Silence hit the room like a door slammed shut. Lysa's lieutenant, pale with exhaustion, shook his head. Boarding is prohibited under CGS law. Valesse didn't raise her voice. Somehow that made it worse. Your law assumes surrender is an outcome. These things don't accept surrender. They accept inventory. Lysa held her stare. We do not become monsters to defeat monsters. The captain's eyes didn't move. Commander, I've seen what happens when good people refuse to get their hands dirty. It's not purity. It's a mass grave with paperwork. That line landed too close to truth, and everyone felt it. The intercom hissed again. Please remain calm. Valesse looked toward the ceiling as if she could see the broadcast crawling through wires. Who's the source? She asked. Halen spoke quietly. We can't isolate it. That means it's inside the station, Valesse said. Or riding a connection through the hull. Lysa felt the station shift under her boots, a faint vibration like something tapping on glass from the outside. What are you proposing? She asked. Valesse expanded a portion of the schematic and highlighted a damaged shield segment. This, she said. A trap. Jiren stiffened. We don't have enough shield power to fake a collapse. You do if you stop trying to protect everything equally, Valesse replied. Pick one sector. Make it look weak. Let them think they're clever. When they commit a boarding spine, we cut it and capture the brain knot controlling the local assault. You want to invite them in, Lysa said. I want to control where they come in, Valesse answered. Right now they're choosing. They're getting smarter every hour you let them experiment. The chief engineer, an older Triani named Fess, looked physically ill. If you fail, they'll pour through an. I don't intend to fail, Valesse said. Lysa's throat felt tight. You cannot promise that. Valesse finally showed something like emotion, frustration held on a leash. Commander, she said, softer now, I can't promise nobody dies. I can promise that if we sit here hoping they get bored, everyone dies. Lysa closed her eyes for a heartbeat. She pictured the shelters. The packed corridors. The child gripping her sleeve. Then she opened her eyes. Operation authorized, she said. Limited sector control. 1 attempt. If your trap risks civilian decks, I revoke it. Valesse nodded once. Accepted. The humans moved with sharp coordination. They didn't argue. They didn't posture. They simply executed. Within minutes, Sector 9 began to flicker, just enough to look wrong. A controlled weakness, like a limp faked for a predator. On the tactical projection, the swarm adjusted. It didn't rush. It drifted. It observed. Then, like a thought becoming certainty, one of the black seed ships detached and glided toward the exposed sector. A new shape unfurled from its belly. A spine. Organic cable thick as a shuttle, lined with hooked ridges. It shot forward and latched onto the station hull with a wet impact that made several officers flinch. "Contact made," Jiren whispered. Vales's voice stayed even. "Hold. Let it feed." Seconds passed. Then the station's internal sensors screamed. "Breach attempt. Sector 9 outer skin." Fess's fingers flew across his console, rerouting power. "It's cutting. Fast." Vales leaned in. "Now." Her teams were already there. A feed opened on the command projector. Helmet cam, shaking slightly with motion. Human Marines sprinted through a narrow service corridor toward the breach site. Their breathing was loud in the MIC. Their boots clanged. Every sound was real and immediate. Then the camera swung, showing the breach spine forcing its way inward, spilling dark matter like a wound bleeding oil. A Marine's voice came through, steady. Visual on the cord. "We've got pulses. That's their nervous system." Vales spoke into her MIC cold aerosol. Then cut. A canister hissed. Mist blasted across the spine, and the organic surface went dull, frost spreading like bruising. Another Marine stepped forward with a tool that glowed red at the tip. "Cutting," he said. The heated blade met the frozen spine. The cable shrieked, not sound, but vibration. The station lights flickered. Everyone in the tactical pit held their breath. Then it snapped. The severed end spasmed violently, smearing black fluid against the floor. And on the projection, the seed ship outside the hull jerked as if punched. "Spine severed," Jiren said, stunned. "Their assault vector is losing cohesion." Vales didn't celebrate. "Secure the knot." The Marines advanced into the breach tunnel, into living darkness, moving with brutal discipline. There were flashes, short bursts of light, a staccato of gunfire, the sound of something wet collapsing. Then a Marine's voice rose, strained. "Got it. Bagging target." A moment later, the camera showed it, a fist-sized mass in a containment sleeve, pulsing faintly like a heart made wrong. Threads of organic fiber twitched in panic. Vales exhaled once. "Bring it home." Lysa realized her hands were clenched so hard her nails had cut into her palms. The swarm ship outside the station drifted backward, slow and deliberate, like it was thinking. Not retreating. Calculating. The intercom sputtered, and for the first time since the humans arrived, the swarm's translation shifted. The tone was still polite, but there was something sharper underneath, like curiosity turning into appraisal. New variable detected. Vales stared at the ceiling with the stillness of someone who knows a storm is coming. Lysa found her voice. "What does that mean?" "It means," Vales said quietly, "they've noticed the thing they hate most." "And what's that?" The captain looked at her, expression unreadable. "Resistance that adapts back." The swarm stopped playing the audio. Not because it grew tired of cruelty. Because it had found a better tool. Holdfast K7's lights dipped once, barely a flicker, then returned, and every screen on the command deck filled with a single message in translated CGS standard. "We offer exchange. You offer power down. We offer return of unprocessed." The words were neat. Civil like a contract. Commander Lysa Renk felt her stomach knot before the image even appeared. A video feed opened. Grainy. Close. Too close. A freight bay. Industrial lighting. Rows of captives on their knees. Not K7 personnel, external civilians, likely pulled from stranded corridor traffic in the last week. Their hands were bound behind them with living straps that tightened when they struggled. Their faces were grey with dehydration. One child stared directly into the camera, lip split, eyes too steady for someone that small. Then the feed widened. Behind them stood a Varcoon shepherd, a tall figure grown around skeletal metal, limbs too long, joints moving with slow insect certainty. It held a tool that wasn't a weapon so much as an argument, a rotating cutter with a hollow intake tube that pulsed faintly. The translator spoke again, polite as before. "We will return these units intact. Compliance reduces resource waste." A sharp whimper sounded. One of the captives collapsed forward. The strap around their wrists jerked them upright like a puppet. Lysa's voice came out low. Mute it. No one moved. Not because they couldn't. Because they couldn't bear to blink. Captain Mara Velez stood behind Lysa, hands clasped behind her back, motionless. The only hint of emotion was the tightness at the edge of her jaw. Jiren whispered, "Commander, this is a negotiation window." Lysa shot him a look so sharp it cut. "This is extortion." On the feed, the shepherd tilted its head. A gesture so almost human it made Lysa's skin crawl. "Power down, shield grid. We return unprocessed. Failure to comply produces efficiency measures." The cutter tool spun once with a soft whine, not touching anyone, just letting the sound carry. A mother on the floor jerked, shoulders shaking, trying not to scream. Lysa turned away. She couldn't watch. She couldn't not watch. Velez stepped forward, voice quiet. "They're testing your leash." "My leash?" Lysa snapped. "They're measuring how far you'll bend to stop pain," Velez said. "You bend once, you'll spend the rest of your life bending until your spine breaks." Lysa rounded on her. "Those are living people." "Yes," Velez answered. "Calm but iron. That's why they're using them." Halen's fingers hovered over his console. "High Command is pinging us again. They want to know if we can open dialogue." Lysa laughed once, short and ugly. "Dialogue? With something that thinks in harvest cycles." Velez looked at the hostage feed again. Her eyes didn't soften. They sharpened. "Where is the signal coming from?" she asked. Fess, the chief engineer, swallowed. "External relay. Mobile, but not fast. It's close enough to maintain a stable broadcast through the interdiction field." Velez nodded as if confirming an expected symptom. "Good. It's a node. A nerve. We cut it, the hostage theater ends." "And the hostages?" Lysa asked. Velez didn't answer immediately, which was answer enough. Lysa felt the station's weight around her. Tens of thousands breathing, waiting, trusting. The temptation of surrender wasn't safety. It was a different kind of death. Yet the feed made that truth difficult to hold. Jiren spoke again, careful. "Commander, our doctrine exists for this reason. To prevent escalation. To preserve life." Velez turned her head slowly toward him. "Your doctrine assumes your enemy cares about your values." Jiren's throat tightened. "We must care, or we become them." Velez took a step closer, and for the first time her voice rose, not loud, but edged. "No. You become them when you stop protecting your own." The hostage feed flickered. The child looked into the camera again. The swarm's translator produced a final line, almost gentle. "You have 10 minutes." The screen went black. The silence afterward felt worse than the broadcast. Lysa exhaled slowly. "Options." Velez didn't waste time. "Rescue." Fess blinked. "From an external node ship. We don't have the ships. We don't have the manpower." Velez nodded once. "We do." She tapped her slate, throwing up a human tactical overlay. Clean, modular, bluntly functional. A small assault package. 2 shuttle darts. 1 boarding squad. Lysa stared. "You're proposing a strike outside the station." "It's not a strike," Velez corrected. "It's extraction. We hit the relay, grab everyone who's still alive, and leave a shaped charge gift for the shepherd." Jiren looked pale. "Boarding outside is reckless. If they trap your squad." "They'll try," Velez said. Lysa narrowed her eyes. "Why are you so certain?" Because she'd seen that certainty before. It wasn't confidence. It was pattern recognition. Velez met her gaze. "Because they've learned we respond to suffering." Lysa felt the air shift around that sentence. "You're bait," Lysa murmured. "We're predictable," Velez replied. "So we stop being predictable." Halen spoke, voice brittle. "Commander, we have another issue. Internal systems are glitching. Airlocks cycling. Doors unlocking then relocking. The medbay got a false oxygen alarm." Fess swore under his breath. They're spoofing authentication codes. Lysa's eyes widened. How? Fess looked sick. They have our IDs. Stolen from the dead. Or copied. The station didn't just have enemies outside its hull anymore. It had them wearing its skin. Vales's gaze sharpened further. Analog fallback. Now. Fess blinked. We don't have. Yes you do, Vales snapped, and her control slipped for half a second. Every ship has manual overrides. You've just forgotten where you put the wrench. She turned to her team. Hardline comms. No wireless. Lock down air ducts. Physically post guards at medbay doors. If the swarm wants a key, it can come take it. Something in that last line made Lysa's heart thud. The humans were afraid too. They were just trained not to let fear steer the wheel. Minutes later, in the staging bay, the boarding squad prepared with quiet rituals. Checks. Taps. Shared glances that carried more than words. One Marine, young, freckles under the harsh lights, held a small cloth patch between his fingers. He pressed it to his helmet plate as if it were a promise. Lysa watched from the edge of the bay, arms tight against her ribs. Vales approached her. You don't have to like this. I don't, Lysa said. Good, Vales replied. Liking it would be a problem. Lysa looked at the two shuttle darts, sleek, ugly little machines built like thrown knives. If this fails. It won't fail because we're brave, Vales said. It'll work because we plan for panic. Lysa's voice dropped. And the hostages? Vales's stare held steady. We bring them back. Lysa searched her face. That's not what I asked. Vales exhaled once. Commander, I can't guarantee the swarm hasn't already started cutting. But if we do nothing, the next broadcast will be bodies. Lysa's throat tightened. She forced the words out. Then go. The shuttles launched. On the main screen, their trajectory cut through the darkness, running cold to avoid detection. For a moment it looked almost peaceful, two faint streaks moving through empty space. Then the swarm reacted. A ripple of dark shapes shifted, drifting into the path like debris carried by a current. Not interceptors, something else. Living minds. Slow, patient. Adjust vector, Vales ordered. They want you to dodge. Don't. The pilot's voice came back, clipped. Burn through, Vales said. Trust the plating. The shuttles slammed forward, engines flaring briefly. A mine struck the lead dart and burst into adhesive biofoam, splashing across its hull like tar. For one terrifying second, the shuttle slowed. Then it kept moving, brute-forcing inertia through the drag. Lysa let out a breath she didn't remember holding. The relay ship appeared on sensors, a swollen, uneven mass with tendrils anchoring it in place, like a tick fat with stolen blood. Boarding in 5, the squad leader reported. The view switched to helmet cam. Darkness. A cut seam. Interior tissue glistening under harsh light. The squad moved in, boots splashing in thin fluids, weapon lamps stabbing through cramped corridors. Then a sound carried through the comm, faint, distorted. A human voice. Not the squad's. A slow exhale crawled through the speakers, followed by a whisper that didn't belong to any living throat. Hello, Deathworlders. Lysa's skin prickled. Vales's eyes narrowed as if she'd been slapped. The squad leader froze. Captain, we have contact. Not visual. Audio only. The whisper returned, translator stuttering to keep up. We observed your pattern. You approach pain. You do not flee it. Fascinating. A Marine hissed, What the hell is that? Vales leaned toward the MIC, voice flat. Identify yourself. The relay ship's walls pulsed once. I am optimization. I am Prime Harrow of Ask. The hostage bay came into view, captives huddled behind living restraints, eyes wide with the fragile hope of rescue. Then the corridor ahead sealed shut with a wet slam. The squad leader swore. We're cut off. From the darkness above them, something dripped, thick, shining strands forming a curtain. Not a trap. What they got were Deathworlders. and the terrible mercy of a species that refused to let anyone be harvested quietly. A cage. Vask's whisper slid through the comm like a blade through cloth. You brought reinforcements. We brought a laboratory. The feed shattered into static as the squad's lights went out. And on Holdfast K7, every screen on the command deck turned black, except one. A single line of text pulsed, patient and precise. Choose. Write Chapter 4 in depth and in great detail, in 1,000 words only, in an intriguing writing style, give a human writing touch, stay to the point with a logical and smooth flow, avoid repetition of the same theme and vocabulary and words and phrases over and over, keep the audience interested, and add dialogue when necessary. Stay tight and to the point, no extra words, themes or sentences repetition, same thing again and again. Avoid repetition 100%. The swarm didn't demand surrender again. It demanded selection. Holdfast K7's command deck stayed dim, emergency lighting turning every face into a sculpture carved from exhaustion. The tactical projection had collapsed into a simplified wireframe, power rationing, and in that pale outline the station looked thin, fragile, already half-eaten. One line pulsed on the central screen. Choose. Commander Lysa Renk hated the word more than any weapon. Captain Mara Velez stood perfectly still beside her, gaze fixed on the dead channel where her boarding squad had vanished into darkness. Say it, Lysa demanded, voice tight. Tell me what it means. Velez didn't flinch. It means they want you to break yourself. You pick one group to save, and they use your choice to poison the rest. Fess, the chief engineer, spoke like he'd swallowed glass. They've locked out reactor containment controls. We can still regulate heat, but the final safety interlocks, gone. Halen's hands hovered over the comms board. External weapons are aligning. One shot. Clean line to the core housing. Jiren's eyes flicked toward Lysa. Commander, if the core ruptures. I know, Lysa said. Everyone dies. Outside, in the void, the swarm ships drifted into an elegant curve that made Lysa think of a predator's smile. They weren't swarming now. They were positioning with confidence, like the outcome was already filed. Velez finally moved. She drew a slow breath, then tapped her slate. A new overlay appeared, human schematics, stark and blunt, labeled with terms that felt almost obscene in the CGS command pit. Maze config. Vent plan. Kill corridors. Anchor dock. Lysa stared. You're proposing to vent my station. Selective venting, Velez corrected. We force their boarders into controlled lanes. We deny them access to the civilian decks. We turn K7 into a trap. Jiren's voice rose, sharp. That will kill personnel in those sections. It will kill personnel in any section if the core ruptures, Velez replied. Pick your disaster. Don't let them pick it for you. Lysa felt her throat tighten. The station wasn't just walls and systems. It was people. Names. Faces. Small acts of courage carried out while the galaxy watched from a safe distance. Your squad is still out there, Lysa said quietly. You're making plans like they're already dead. Velez's jaw tightened, and for a fraction of a second something raw slipped through. I'm making plans like I refuse to lose them and the civilians, she said. That's what humans do when the math turns ugly. We don't accept the numbers. We fight them. Fess rubbed his eyes with trembling fingers. How do you stop the core shot? Velez pointed to the docking diagram. We dock Hecate directly to your auxiliary thermal spine. We run our reactors as a stabilizer and heat sink. Your containment stays within tolerance long enough for us to break their firing alignment. Fess blinked. That will overload your ship. It might, Velez said. Lysa looked at her. You'd sacrifice your only vessel. Velez met her gaze. A ship is metal. Those shelters are breathing. Silence followed, heavy, unavoidable. Then Lysa straightened, as if her spine had decided it was tired of bending. Do it, she said. Jiren's eyes widened. Commander, High Command forbids. I don't care what High Command forbids, Lysa snapped, and the sharpness in her voice surprised even her. High Command isn't here. I am. She turned toward the station-wide channel. Halen hesitated. "Commander, if you address everyone, panic could." "It already has," Lysa said. "Now we give it shape." He opened the broadcast. Lysa's voice carried through Holdfast K7, through shelter corridors lined with huddled families, through maintenance shafts where technicians sweated in the dark, through triage bays where medics fought to keep hands steady. "This is Commander Lysa Renk," she said. "Listen to me. Not to them." A pause, enough to let the station breathe. "We are under threat of core breach. We cannot evacuate. We cannot negotiate. The enemy has offered us a choice meant to destroy our unity." Her hands shook. She kept her voice level anyway. "I'm ordering a defensive reconfiguration. Some sections will be vented. Bulkheads will seal. You will hear alarms. You will feel the station change." She swallowed. "This will be frightening," she continued. "But you are not alone. We have allies aboard. They will fight beside us. We will protect our civilians. We will protect our wounded. We will not feed ourselves to the swarm to buy a few minutes of quiet." Her voice softened, just enough. "Gentleness is not surrender," she said. "It is what we defend." Then she cut the transmission before her resolve could crack. Valès exhaled once. "Good speech." "I wasn't trying to inspire," Lysa said. "That's the thing," Valès replied. "You did anyway." The station transformed. Doors cycled shut in a staggered pattern. Bulkheads sealed with heavy impacts. Warning lights strobed. Air pressure shifted in waves as venting began, controlled, surgical, horrifying. On the tactical board, the swarm responded instantly. Boarding spines launched. Not 1. 6. They shot toward the station like spears thrown by a patient hand. "Contacts inbound," Jiren said, voice strained. Valès's eyes hardened. "Let them in where we want them." The first spine struck Sector 9 again, because of course it did. The swarm trusted its own learning. It repeated success until punished. Human teams waited in the kill corridors, positioned behind layered plates and foam barriers, wired into hardline comms, their breathing steady in helmet mics. They didn't chant. They didn't shout. They simply prepared to work. A spine punched through the hull, and darkness spilled into the corridor. Wet, alive, pulling itself forward with hungry purpose. The swarm boarders followed, elongated shapes crawling over metal, bodies grown around tools, eyes faintly luminous like embers deep in ash. The humans didn't rush them. They guided them. Retreating by meters, not fear, geometry. They let the swarm funnel deeper, past disguised barriers, past collapsible partitions, into a chamber lined with magnetic coils and thermal traps. Valès watched the feed and spoke softly. "Now." Fess hit the control. The chamber temperature dropped like a cliff. Frost exploded across surfaces. The swarm boarders convulsed as their organic structures stiffened. Their limbs locked mid-motion, their weapon tools becoming dead weight. Then the magnetic coils activated. The biometal within their bodies jerked violently, pinned by invisible force. The boarders became statues, caught between biology and physics, neither able to win. The humans moved in. Short bursts. Precision. No wasted rounds. No flourish. "Clear," a Marine reported. "Next corridor," another voice said. "Calm as routine maintenance." Lysa stared at the feed, chest tight. The humans weren't enjoying it. They were finishing it. Outside, the swarm realized the station had become hostile to intrusion. So it shifted again. Its ships tightened formation. Weapons aligned. That single core breach shot began to charge, energy coiling at the muzzle like a sun being strangled into a line. Halen's voice broke. "It's powering up." Valès turned without hesitation. Docking sequence. Go. On the external cam, UNV Hecate moved like a bruised animal refusing to die. It latched onto Holdfast K7's auxiliary spine and locked in with a heavy mechanical clank that felt like a fist closing. Fess shouted over alarms. "Heat transfer engaged, by the stars, it's actually stabilizing." The human ship's reactors flared. The station's containment tremor eased by fractions, enough to matter. Enough to live. But the swarm fired anyway. A beam lanced across space, brilliant, thin, merciless. It struck the docking zone. The impact flashed white. Holdfast K7 screamed through its hull plates. Lights died. Systems rebooted. Gravity hiccuped. For one terrifying moment, Lysa felt weightless, floating in the command pit as if the universe had shrugged them off. Then gravity snapped back, and she hit her knees hard enough to taste blood. "Report," she rasped. Fess coughed, eyes wide. "Containment holding. Barely. Hecate took most of it." Halen's voice trembled. "Human ship. Heavy damage. They're still connected." A channel opened, crackling with interference. Vales's voice came through, strained but steady. "K7. This is Hecate. We're not pretty, but we're here." Lysa felt something inside her chest loosen, just slightly. Then Jiren's console beeped sharply. "Commander. Swarm formation breaking. Some units are pulling away." Vales's eyes narrowed. "They're recalculating." "No," Halen whispered, staring at incoming data. "They're fighting each other." The captured knot, still contained in the lab, pulsed wildly. Its translated output spilled across the screen in fractured lines. Inefficiency detected. Prime optimization disputed. Self-prune commencing. Lysa stared. "What did you do?" Vales didn't answer immediately. Her gaze was fixed on a human terminal running a signal loop, something crafted and ugly, built from the swarm's own pattern language. A psychological knife. "We showed them a contradiction," she said at last. "We made them doubt their own leader." In the void outside, swarm ships collided, tore, separated. Not chaos, correction. A brutal form of self-editing. While they pruned, the humans struck. A single human shuttle dart, burned and shaking, slipped through the disruption and slammed into the swarm's command vessel like a needle finding a vein. No grand explosion. Just a contained bloom that cut the ship's core logic out like a tumor. The siege didn't end with cheers. It ended with the swarm withdrawing in silence, as if it had never cared at all. On the command deck, alarms faded one by one. Vent cycles stabilized. Emergency lights returned to normal tone. Lysa stood slowly, joints aching, and looked around at her surviving crew, faces streaked with blood, sweat, and relief too sharp to hold. Vales leaned against the console, breathing hard, one hand clenched at her side as if she'd been wounded and refused to admit it. "Your ship," Lysa said, voice quiet. "You nearly lost it." Vales nodded. "Yeah. Why?" Vales looked toward the shelter decks on the schematic. "Because they were counting on you to choose who mattered." She met Lysa's eyes. "And I'm not built for that." Hours later, when the corridor was clear and the surviving civilians were brought into brighter halls, Lysa walked through the shelters again. She saw humans sitting on the floor, helmets off, handing ration packs to shaking hands. She saw a Marine using a strip of cloth to make a toy sling for a child's broken arm. She saw Captain Vales crouched beside an elderly Triani, speaking softly as medics worked. The galaxy had called them Deathworlders like it was an accusation. Lysa understood now it was a warning. Not because humans loved violence. Because when something tried to take their people, they became the kind of force the universe learned to avoid. They had asked for reinforcements.